I'm not pulling out of my driveway. We all know what that means. It's time for another Drive to Work Coronavirus Edition. Okay, so while I'm stuck at home, I decided to interview people that have stuff to do with magic from all over the spectrum. So today I have a very exciting guest, Mark Heggen. So say hi, Mark.
Hello.
Okay, so...
It's truly an honor to be on the podcast. Long-time listener, first-time guest. Thank you.
Okay, so first off, the thing I've been asking everybody is, what is your title so the audience knows what... We'll get into what you do, but just what's your title?
Yeah, I am product architect. So within the group that makes tabletop paper magic, within that group there's a team called the product strategy team, and I'm part of that team as the product architect.
Okay, we will get into what you do, but the way I've been starting all these interviews is by asking the following question of everybody. How did you get into magic?
Okay, I was in 4th grade when Beta came out. Okay. I was at my friend Paul's house. I still remember his big brother, who was kind of like we both looked up to, he ran in the door. He was like, guys, get all the money you can and follow me down to the gaming store down on Central Avenue. So we went down there. He's like, just trust me, buy this new thing. It's called Magic Card. So I think we had enough money for like maybe 2 boosters. Back then you could get either boosters or like the starter deck. I think we had enough money for 2 boosters each. We opened them up, started looking through, and immediately I was like, this is the most interesting thing I've ever seen. The idea of cards combining, the idea that I got to make my own deck, the idea that I had to, I didn't even know what all the cards were, and someone would show me a new card from their pack, and like, not only was I not aware of it, I didn't even understand whole parts of the game, you know? So I just immediately fell in love with it and never looked back.
Okay, so you started in 4th grade. What was the first thing you purchased?
Yeah, so I got two. We had no money. 4th graders don't have any money. So we had lawn mowing allowance money. So I would get like a booster every couple of weeks. So me and my friends I remember going halfers on boosters. Me and our friends would like chip in enough money to buy a booster, and then we'd like split the cards up. We traded a lot because we needed to see new stuff. And we picked colors because like if I picked green and Paul picked blue, and then we could just it just kind of sorted itself out. So I ended up with green, and then I moved into blue. So I had like this huge collection, huge for me, like 100 blue Magic cards. It felt very powerful.
What was the first set though? What was your first set?
What's that first set? It was Beta. So yeah, this
okay.
was Beta, and I think we was like early. Magic would come into the store and then quickly evaporate. So when it would come in, we'd go in and ask every day after school. He'd be like, no, we're going to get some more tomorrow. And yeah, so we were just playing Beta. Back then, I mean, some people were certainly more connected, but being as young as we were, we literally didn't know what the cards were. There was no, we weren't looking at any list or anything. We had no idea how the rarity worked or value. I remember just like gleefully trading away dual lands and moxes for like crawl worms and like walls of stone. I'm like, you idiot, I'm invincible. Like, you'll never get past my wall of stone. Have fun with your artifact that makes a mana. And it didn't matter. Like, we were truly like engaging it on the most joyful level.
Okay, so let's fast forward a little bit, okay? Right? Yeah. So you're in 4th grade. How long have you played consecutively since 4th grade?
I have no, there's been gaps of years. So there's like 2-year gaps kind of sprinkled between then and now.
Okay.
But I'll say this, ever since I was like, once I got to high school and the internet was kind of around, from that point on, I've been continually kind of tuned into Magic. So even in stretches where I wasn't playing much, for me, I really enjoy Magic just as kind of a spectator sport, like seeing what the thing is, hearing about what the new meta is, reading about the debate over if a card should be banned or not. Like even in the parts of my life where I wasn't playing, I was always kind of just reading both the articles that would go up on the website. I just enjoyed kind of being around it.
Okay, so let's talk about how you went from being a Magic fan to being a Magic employee. So how did that happen?
Yeah, I went to college for graphic design. So I went to undergrad and then grad school for graphic design. And I was kind of like lined up to do, typography and poster design and that kind of stuff. And when I got to grad school, I went to a school where you had a lot of freedom. There weren't really classes or grades or assignments. You could kind of do what you wanted. And I realized one day, oh my God, I think they mean it. I think when they say I could do whatever I want, I think they actually mean that. And I realized games, which I'd always loved, I'd always played, I'd always thought about. I was like, oh, maybe I should just be thinking about games with my education. So I started doing game design. I don't know. I just kind of dove in. I started like reading what I could, designing stuff, making stuff up, like submitting board game prototypes to companies and never hearing back. Whatever, just like all the stuff that felt so fun. And through that process, I realized, oh no, I actually could get into game design. So I got an internship while at grad school in game design for a studio in New York. And then from that point on, I was just always in gaming. I was always in digital gaming. And I just kind of went through a series of jobs doing kind of different elements of game stuff that was interesting to me and fun to me. But that whole time, I always thought, yeah, but Wizards R&D. Like Wizards R&D to me my whole life had been this kind of like, I don't know, it's like the City of Oz. It's just like this thing. And
so how did that happen? How'd you get into the City of Oz? How the actual job happened?
Yeah, what I did was I set for like a decade, you could subscribe, you probably still can, you can subscribe to the Wizards job posting. So every time there's a new job that goes up, they email you. So for literally a decade, I was aware of every job that was posted. I knew I wasn't like, I was not a strong Magic player. I was not a super strong, like pure game designer. But I thought someday there's going to be a job that's for me. And one day this job showed up. It was called Principal Product Designer was the job that came up. And I started reading this description and it was like, help craft Magic, like be the kind of nexus between business and design and experience. And it was things that were very similar to what I had been doing at the time. And I was living in New York at the time. I had a great job. I loved it very much. But I read that description and I was like, I think this is it. So I went home. I told my wife, hey, do you want to move to Seattle? Is there a chance we should take a run at this thing? And so after a decade of looking at this stuff, I sent in my application. And before you know it, I was having interviews. I came out. I sat down with you and all these people that I had been, like looking at your tiny headshots, while reading articles for forever. And now I was talking to you guys.
I remember your interview. That was fun. You were.
Do you remember what happened when you walked in the room?
What happened when I walked in?
So I'm in this tiny room, and the way the interviews were done then is you'd have like 4 people for half an hour, then they'd leave, then 4 more people. Then it was like a grueling day. And halfway through this day, I look up, and you walk in the room, and you're, hey, I'm Mark. And just then there's a clock on the wall behind you, and it falls off the wall, and it explodes on the ground, like shatters. This plastic clock explodes on the wall. And I'm like, oh, this is some kind of test to see how I react under pressure or something.
I remember your first interview. I don't remember the clock falling off the wall, but okay. So you get the job. So let's talk a little bit about what you actually do. Like you gave a name, and that sounds impressive. But tactfully, what do you do?
Yeah, there's kind of 2 main parts to what we do. We are working on the product of Magic, not the game of Magic, if that makes sense. So I'm not working on card designs. I am not spending my time like crafting sets or worlds. I'm spending my time thinking about the ways that our building and our group can take those cards and those sets and those worlds and turn them into products that people can actually buy and own and open. So sometimes I'm thinking about like our product strategy, like, hey, should we be doing more fixed decks like Commander decks or Planeswalker decks, or should we be doing less, right? That's kind of it's not obvious how that works. Should we be releasing a set, in this month, or should we push it back to the following month? That kind of stuff.
What is the released product that you worked a lot on? It's something that we can talk about because it's been released. Yeah,
let's see. I've worked on a combination of individual products and sets. So some sets we have a product architect assigned to every set. So Modern Horizons or
let's talk about Modern Horizons. You were the so what does that mean? You're the what product? What's the technical term?
I was the product architect.
Okay, product architect. Okay, so Modern Horizons comes. So
yep.
Okay, so Ethan and I pitched Modern Horizons during the hackathon. It gets picked as the product, and then Ethan leads the vision design. We make it. It passes off to I think Adam Prozac, who did the set design. And so, what happens? When do you get involved?
Right.
When are you? And what are you doing with Modern Horizons?
Right, that's a great question. So, if you can, all the people you just listed are kind of working on how this thing plays, but you can imagine kind of in parallel for the whole life of a set like that, there's a bunch of questions about how this thing will work, not mechanically, but just kind of in the world. So, for example, there were questions early on around how legality of this set should work. Like, in what formats can you play this set? And it's not my decision to make that, but it's my job to kind of help facilitate that, get our heads around that, have the right conversations. Mm-hmm. There's also questions about like when it should come out. So it's not obvious when to release a set. There's a lot of constraints, and so I worked on that stuff. But then there's also stuff like what's in the pack. Like, should this have a foil in every pack? Should it have some new interesting stuff that we've never done before? What should the frames look like? What should the expansion symbol look like? All that stuff is stuff that I'm really helping run.
And is price point part of what you do?
And price point, right? Like how is this thing meant to work? Is it limited? Do we print only a little bit and let it run out? Is it print to demand? How much do we sell it in for? All that stuff. So yeah, as you can see with Modern Horizons, we did a bunch of interesting stuff. The formats are unusual. You look in a booster and it had those art cards. That's a great example. It had these little art cards. It's not a magic card. It's just a kind of a collectible piece of art. That came out of thinking I was doing with other people. Like, we had a lot of beautiful artwork in this set. This set works a little bit different. It feels appropriate to try some new stuff. So after a lot of brainstorming, we said, hey, what if we just took a shot with these kind of weird objects? And then from that point, I had to work with, okay, like, how many of them will fit on the form, and how much will that add to the production costs, and will it slow things down, and who picks them, and all this stuff. So I'm kind of like working alongside. I'm kind of advocating for a product all the way through. Again, I'm not designing it. I'm not building it myself, but I'm the kind of through line as it's going between groups like the legal department and the production and sales and world building and game design. I'm the kind of constant thread who can go through all that.
And it sounds like your job is to ask a lot of questions. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Your job is to say A, B, C, and D all have to get answered. Not that you answer them, but you make sure the people who have to answer them know that they have to answer it. Right.
There's so many, like, these sets are so complicated that we can't afford to play like a game of telephone each time something comes through. So, for example, I work on it's my job for the products I'm on to make sure that the kind of finances that we can afford to make what we want to make, for example. So if someone has an idea, if game design has an idea, hey, what if we did a thing with double-faced cards that sounds fun from their side? I can't ask that person to then go talk to the finance department and see if we have the budget to run the printers in that way. They're too busy. Like, people don't have time to answer those questions, and it's too, like, it would never work. So I'm the person. I hear it from. So game design comes to me and says, hey, Mark, we would love to be able to put double-faced cards in the set. And then I say no more. I got it. I'll report back. Then I go to a whole different part of the building. I talk to production. I talk to legal. I talk to whoever I need to talk to. I get the answer. I go back. I help make decisions. I advocate or adjudicate or whatever needs to be done. And then at the end of the day, I come back and I say, we got it. Here's how, go forward. We got this. Or sometimes I have to say, you know what, unfortunately, double-faced cards aren't really on the table. Let's work together to find out other exciting stuff we could do that is in bounds.
Yeah, one of the things that I don't talk a lot about the business side of things, but like when I'm making a set and I'm doing something that I know is not normal, one of the things I have to do is go talk to my product architect and say, hey, like exactly. When I did Innistrad for the first time, very early on, I had to go and say, double-faced cards, right? Is this a thing we can do? It requires extra sheets and it requires different stuff. Or even more recently, like Ikoria, this wasn't, I know you didn't product this set, but like the punch-out cards, I want to have punch-out cards. Well, now that Magic can't do it, but it costs something, and it, like every set has so much budget, and when you're trying to do something, you have to figure out whether it fits in the budget. And I think your job is somebody's got to be kind of the overseer that's coordinating everything. And the way I interact with you and with all the different project architects is I have grandiose ideas, and I got to go, okay, is this something I can explore? And usually the answer I get from you guys is go explore it, and then let us know what you need, and then we'll go figure out whether or not it's feasible or not. And they come back, and it's either it's feasible, but there's some, it because you're doing this, you can't do something else. Or, here's why it's not feasible. Maybe you want to consider something else. Right,
exactly. Yeah, so I think when things work well, I'm I'm hopefully taking as much. I'm letting all the different parts of the system be as creative and kind of expansive as possible, whether that's game design or world building or our sales department or our partners in Arena. I want all those people to just feel like they can have ideas all the time. They don't have to self-censor, and then I'll help figure out what we can or can't do. But, hopefully I'm kind of like making everyone else around me be a little bit more aggressive and creative and experimental, because they feel like, well, I have the support, and if I'm causing trouble to some other part of the system, Heggen will figure that out, and I won't get in trouble.
Yeah, no, I mean, one of the things that's nice, I mean, like I said, one of the reasons I've been doing all these interviews, A, I'm stuck at home, but B is so many people make Magic that I think the average player doesn't understand all the nuance of things. And I find the business part of things, like a lot of times people ask me something and I'm like, oh, we didn't have the budget. It's like they don't think in that terms. I mean, we have to think in that terms, but they don't think in that terms of why'd you do A or do B? And I'm like, oh, like, for example, another big thing that comes up is how many cards do you get? How many pieces of art do you get? That's one of the questions I'm always asking is like, okay, how big can my set be? And the main sets, the normal sets are somewhat have a structure. But the supplemental sets can be all over the board depending on what you're trying to do.
Right.
Okay, I want to talk about... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, this game is so complex in so many different ways, and it's every day I'm surprised realizing more kind of like impacts and the realities that happen when you push one button on one side of the machine and on the other side something dramatic happens. So there's a lot going on. Yeah.
Were you the project architect for Unsanctioned, or is that Purpose?
No, that's not me. That's so we for the listeners at home, we there's multiple people who act as project architects on sets, and we're each assigned different products, and so some of these things I'm very, very close to, and then other sets it's like, oh no, that I had very little to do.
And you tend to do a lot of the core set stuff. Like what is your specialty?
Yeah, I started off doing, when I first kind of showed up, the first sets they gave me were the core sets. I was doing all our acquisition stuff. So I still oversee our acquisition strategy. So anything that we're creating in paper to try to welcome people into the game, that's under me. So yeah, so I did the M19 and M20, M21. And then after that, I started doing other stuff. So War of the Spark, Modern Horizons. Those things just kind of layered in as I spent more time here. Okay. And then some of the stuff I'm doing is like guild kits. So when we did Ravnica, we wanted to make these guild kits, which were like little special boxes that celebrated one of the guilds. And those were just a very interesting kind of standalone product with lots of, we spent a lot of time figuring out like what the taxation on a metallic pin was in Italy. Like these very specialty solutions that you just end up answering once for one product and then never deal with again.
Okay, so another project that you were very involved in, I want to talk about, is Secret Lair.
Right.
So talk about the origin of Secret Lair. How did that come about?
Yeah, so when I first got here, I've been a wizard for about 3 years. When I first got here, we didn't sell anything direct to consumer. We also weren't selling on Amazon. We really were running everything through basically one sales channel, through our distributors, then to WPN or to mass market. Meanwhile, I'm a sneaker collector. I was really getting into sneaker collecting at the time. And so every morning I was setting my alarm clock and waking up to compete for these little like flash sales they were having for specialty release sneakers. And then I would go home at night and I would look at like old sneakers or decide, what to put next to my collection.
Oh, by the way, look behind you. Oh, they can't see it. I can visually see you. This is an audio, sorry. But all behind you is all these sneakers, so.
Yeah, I'm in my shoe closet during the...
so it's funny. Anyway, it's not video, but I forgot for a second it's not video, but he's behind him is all these sneakers, so. Okay, so you were into sneakers. Okay.
It was so much fun. It was like, I enjoyed shopping for these things and collecting these things, and they have so much in common with Magic cards. They're collectible. They kind of have reissues, which is kind of like our reprints and special versions, special edition, all that stuff. And Magic was just doing none of that. And I thought, there's got to be some version of this for Magic cards. There's a joyful, like, there's a fun way to buy Magic cards for some people that involves just interesting ways of buying things. You can't just get it off the shelf. It works a little differently. So I started thinking about what would it mean if we released cards in different ways. maybe only available in limited numbers or a limited time, or we could just do different things with them. We could surprise you with them. We didn't have to worry about, I don't know, the person at the store seeing it before we wanted to announce it, all that stuff. And so I started thinking hard about this idea of kind of a direct line where we could sell special versions of cards, get them in the hands of people who are interested, and it's kind of totally optional. So people who aren't interested can just ignore the whole thing. That's fine. It's like sneakers. Most people on the planet don't care at all when they come out with a new version of shoes, but for the people who do, it's kind of a beautiful part of the hobby. And so, yeah, it took years, frankly. We worked with a lot of groups, a lot of partners to solve problems, and then we ended up launching at the end of last year the Secret Lair Drop Series. And we're going strong.
So one of the things I enjoy about Secret Lair is how it just has such variety to it that it's just, who knows what the next Secret Lair is going to be. There's something very fun about that. Like for example, talk a little bit about how the April Fool's one came to be.
Yeah, with Secret Lair, you can do small things, which isn't the case with a set. If you're going to build a set or a world or a mechanic, nothing can be small. It's like it's too big of a thing. With Secret Lair, you can just have little, sometimes dumb little ideas, and they're great. They're fantastic. It's the right size. So we had a bunch of brainstorming around okay, we're going to do these Secret Lairs. We're going to do a pack about rats. We're going to do a pack about goblins. We're going to do a pack about this art style. And actually, Brian Hawley from Play Design came to me, and he was like, here's what April Fool's should be. It should be full art Squire. And we just thought it was so funny. We laughed so hard. And so, yeah, we worked really hard on kind of fleshing that out. I worked with him in Play Design actually very closely. What are the funniest bad cards? Is Stormcrow more or less funny than this other option? And we ended up with a list. We got our artists to do these gorgeous full art cards. And then we always knew the launch was good, the actual sale was going to be special. We ended up getting kind of blown out by the coronavirus and everything, but it ended up, these things are going to go out. They will exist in the world. Stores will have these beautiful, terrible cards. And it's going to go down in, for people who like this stuff, you just never would. There's no other way to do this. You could not have done that in a set. You could not have done that in some kind of big, expensive, I don't know, commander deck. I don't know how else you would ever get to these things. So that's what Secret Lair is for. Okay, so my next question for you is, what is your favorite impact you've had on a Magic product? It's a great question. That is a great question. There's some upcoming stuff I'm really proud of. But
okay, of stuff the audience knows. We can't preview things they don't know. There's cool stuff coming, though. We'll say that.
Yeah. I will say, when I look at some of the stuff we're doing with Secret Lair, the artists we're working with, the styles we're bringing into cards, to me that is really, it's so exciting to me. Magic has always been about a lot of kind of, we're telling a lot of different stories. There's a lot of characters. We have a lot of different worlds that we point the camera at. But to me, looking at something like the Serum Visions cards that we created, which just have art styles that are stuff we probably never would have gotten to ever, just visiting world after world. To me, that's really. I hope some people out there enjoy it, because to me it means so much that we've kind of opened up Magic in a way and let it kind of explore on the sides. Not we're not changing the bread and butter. Mainstream Magic is always going to be mainstream Magic, but the fact that we've kind of opened our door and invited a few more people in to just fall in love with Magic cards who to which that art really speaks to, that's something I'm very proud of. Okay, so you mentioned that you did War of the Spark. Yeah. That was another very well-received product. So what was your involvement in War of the Spark? What were the challenges of War of the Spark? Yeah, War of the Spark was one where when I picked that up, I think the idea of going big, having a lot of planeswalkers, all that stuff was worked out. We hadn't ever done an event set. I mean, as you talked about it really was new in so many ways. So a lot of my challenge was explaining this to people, honestly, just to start inside the building. We'd go to our partners who were going to be doing a marketing campaign for this, and we really had to spend a lot of time really getting their heads around what this thing even was. What do you mean an event set? What do you mean 36? You can't do 36. What do you mean? How, will they be bad? Or and so we spent a lot of time just working with them, kind of getting them, bringing them onto our page and here's the vision of this thing, so that they could then go out and spread that to the audience.
Yeah, one of the original things that people don't realize that in the building is they thought that us staying on Ravnica for a third set was like insane. And we kept saying, well, it's not really about Ravnica.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it's on Ravnica, but it's not about Ravnica. And that, I know that was a hard sell inside the building.
Yeah, so we had all these conversations around that kind of stuff. We did the Japanese alt Planeswalker promotion, and that was brand new. We'd never really done anything like that, and so it took a lot of work from a lot of people. I was one of them, but a lot of people worked very hard to figure out how would that even work. What's that going to mean for collectability? How will you get these cards? Will they be too rare or too common, or will people enjoy them? So yeah, we did a lot of work on a lot of those kind of things to just kind of make the final product happen.
Were you involved with the trailer in any way?
No, the trailer comes out of a different group. I kind of, it was a big part of my job to get that group up to speed, but then they did the trailer work itself, and worked with us. We were kind of like chipping in and answering questions. But
how much do you guys work with marketing?
A lot. I think they are. We are a very close partnership. We spend a lot of time making sure they understand what we're trying to do. They spend a lot of time making sure that what they want to say about the set is true. You can imagine with something like a tagline for a set, it's kind of, if you're not paying attention, it's easy to get that stuff out of alignment with what's inside the set. So like, with something like War of the Spark, like what is, if you have to sum that all up in a poster, in one image and one tagline or a little bit of copy, they want to make sure that that's going to match what's inside the boosters. And so we become their conduit where they can come to us, bounce ideas off, show us drafts of stuff, and we can say, oh, actually, this set's not really about Ravnica. Yes, it takes place there, but War of the Spark's not really a Ravnica set. So maybe, play down this part about Ravnica, or really the highlight here, what we really want to focus on is the Planeswalkers, or that kind of thing. So we work with them all the time and set them up to do the work that they need to do.
So you were the product. We can't talk too much because it's not out yet, but on the next core set.
Yep.
So we'll talk in oblique terms because I don't want to give anything away. But did you find that to be a challenging set to do? Are core sets? What are the challenge of core sets? I mean, what does it require you?
I'll tell you what. So when I first came back, my first set was M19, which at the time was the return of core sets. We had taken a break. We came back to core sets. Our approach to acquisition and to what new players should be handed has evolved a lot since then. And so I think when we were doing M19, we were spending a lot of time thinking about how to kind of comfort new players. Like, okay, Magic is very confusing. There's so much going on. There's a lot of rules. There's a lot of words, a lot of lingo, all that stuff. And so back then, a lot of our effort was thought like, okay, how can we make sure we're not overwhelming or confusing players? How can we make this work on their terms? It's changed a bit as we've gone. We've kind of learned a lot. We've done a lot of research, and we've kind of changed a lot of our acquisition strategy. And these days, as you'll see with M21 when it comes out, we want it to be welcoming. We don't want to confuse people, but also we realize that a lot of the power here is how not to confuse players, but to excite players. That even a new player, it's not good enough just to have words they can understand or rules that are simple enough that they can get it. We also have to get them excited and help them fall in love with the game. So over time, my approach to core sets and our whole building's approach to core sets has evolved, which has been really fun. It's been interesting to see what that does to a card set, what it does to the things we do or don't allow ourselves to do with these products. And so, yeah, it's been great to kind of evolve personally and professionally, and from a product side between M19, M20, and now M21.
Yeah, one of the things that are excited for M21, like I said, we're only talking oblique terms here, but the fact that how Jumpstart connected to it, and they're two products that had some synergy with each other. I think Jumpstart, once again, we can't talk too much about it, but it's a very innovative and cool product, and it's something I'm really excited for the public to eventually get their hands on.
Yeah, Jumpstart is. I'm right there with you, and as people will see, Jumpstart is. It's not just a different kind of set. Like it is a set. Technically, it's a set of Magic cards, but it's not just like a different approach to designing a set. It is a different approach to every part of Magic. What it means to be a booster, what it means to open boosters, what it means to play sealed, what it means to build a deck. what it means to wrap up cards within a booster in plastic, like all of those things we rethought for Jumpstart. It was super fun. It was one of the hardest products we've ever made. But it's so rewarding because, I think when people get their hands on it, they're going to see, like, maybe it's for them, maybe it's not. But I think everyone's going to agree, like, wow, this is not business as usual. This is not what I expected from a core set. This is a very different kind of experience.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I will say, I'm almost to work here, so we got to wrap up. But one of the things I will say is I'm very impressed that R&D doesn't tend to rest on its laurels. I mean, Magic's been doing very well,
right.
But we're constantly pushing to try to do new things. And I mean, Jumpstart's a great example of that. There's things in the future that you guys don't know yet that I can't even talk about, but we are definitely pushing a lot to see what we can do. And a lot of that job rests on Mark and the product architects, because, you know, we're constantly like, here's a new idea of something we've never done before. How about that?
Right.
And I always get you're always enthusiastic. The thing I like about you guys is, like, I'll come with some crazy idea and you're like, okay, how can we make that work? And you never say to me, or rarely do you say to me, yeah, we can't do that. I mean, sometimes you do eventually. Sometimes you come back, but it's always like, okay, and then at least you gather data. Like, when you turn me down, it's more like, well, here's the reason why we can't do it.
Right.
So
yeah, it's so true, and I think it really is it's the centerpiece of why this is such a great place to work and a great team to be a part of. It's just people are hungry. People here have big appetites and big eyes, and they're like, well, what if? And they just let ourselves fall in love with these crazy ideas. And then, for something like Jumpstart, we literally had to. There were people who built like a new robot to work in the factory.
Yeah.
They had to invent a robot to make that product work.
Right.
It was worth it. It was worth it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, the people our printers couldn't do it, and we want to do this. They go, okay, we'll figure out how to do it. And, they had to innovate so that they could make the product. So.
Right.
Okay.
That shows up.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me. This has been a lot of fun, and once again, I hope the audience. I hope this was very illuminating in that while people like me might be on the forefront, I'm a little more visible than most. Magic is there's a whole network of people doing all sorts of important jobs, and I just want to stress, like, you do a lot of, you're the center of a lot of the chaos and trying to control things. So, I appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
And that's why I wanted to have you on my show. But I've now come to my den, so we all know what that means. This is the end of my drive to work. So instead of talking magic, it's time for me to be making magic. So I want to thank you for being on the show.
Yes, thank you so much, Mark. Thank you.
And that's a wrap, guys. So I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.